This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Selling a little or a lot? Do your thing however you cha-ching with Shopify, the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout. 36% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms. Get a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/offer23.
Bienvenidas al podcast Dos Bold Latinas. Aquí están sus hosts, Jatna Abreu
y Josibel Madera Vialet, dos latinas feministas born in Santo Domingo y en New York.
Passionate about Latina empowerment, Spanglish,
learning, growth, and so much more.
Hola mujeres, in today's episode we have a special guest whose name is Rebecca Davila. Rebecca is an acupuncturist and is the owner of Vida Acupuncture here in Grand Rapids. Now you may ask yourself, what is acupuncture and why are we talking about it today? Well, according to the internet, and I am sure Rebecca will educate us more about that today, acupuncture is an old age healing practice of traditional Chinese medicine in which thin needles are placed at specific points in the body, and it's primarily used to relieve pain, but also has been used to treat other conditions. So now you probably ask yourself again, why are we talking about it though? But the reason why we're talking about it is because my own experience with acupuncture. So I had heard of acupuncture many, many times and how it helps with overall wellness and even specific illnesses and conditions. But I never had the courage to actually go in and try it because of the fact that it includes many needles and I didn't really know how to feel about that. And so in my journey of trying to conceive baby number 2, I had many complications. And one of the things that kept coming up was how acupuncture helps with kind of resetting your body and getting it ready to conceive. So I did a lot of research and thought, hey, why not give it a try? You never know. If anything, it won't hurt the process. It will probably help with this stress that I'm having right now. So I did some research online and found that there was a fellow Latina in town practicing this. So of course, I booked my first appointment with Rebecca, and the rest is history. So I have been seeing Rebecca for about 6 months now, or more. And even now during my pregnancy, I still see her, and it has been helping me so much. It's still super beneficial. And I feel like every time I go to see Rebecca, now that I'm like further along in my pregnancy, like I come out of there feeling like a new person, honestly. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome Rebecca to our podcast. And I'm super excited for you all to learn more about acupuncture and the amazing work Rebecca has been doing. So welcome, Rebecca. Thank you for being here today.
Gracias a ustedes. Thank you.
Yes. We're excited to have you here. I mean, you heard the story. I mean, you and I have been connecting for such a long time now. And so we are very excited to have you talk about acupuncture and explain that to our audience and understand more about why is it so important and why maybe everybody should try it, right? So we're just going to jump in and ask you questions, Rebecca. And again, feel free to like add on into like all the questions that we're going to be asking you and so forth. So the first thing that we always ask our guests is just tell us a little bit about yourself, Rebecca. Who are you? Where are you from? What did you study? What's your background? Like, tell us all about it.
Great. So my name is Rebecca Davila, and I am originally from Nicaragua. My parents emigrated to the U.S. in the 80s when there was a civil war in Nicaragua. And so I was 6 at the time. So I mainly have grown up here in the U.S. And as far as my career and, what I practice, it's something that I feel I got called to, right? And so I would say acupuncture is my not in terms of how much I love it, but in terms of order, it's my second love. So originally I went to school for social work, and I practiced social work for a long time, community social work. I did some research for many years. And then I taught full time at a small private college in Chicago. But I don't know if you all have had this experience, but I had this como una cosquilla, or just this unsettling like curiosity to study Chinese medicine. And to be honest, at first it wasn't even Chinese medicine. It was like, I want to know about natural medicine. And so I was like, are there any Mayan schools in the US or any Aztec schools, right? Because I was like, I know we have our own medicines, right? Natural. But there aren't those kind of universities here, right? There are in other countries, but not in the US. So I was like, well, I'm going with traditional Chinese medicine. And so I enrolled in school in 2005, already had a whole nother, career. And I'm so glad that I listened to that part of myself, because I feel like I am a different person since having studied Chinese medicine, because it's a whole different worldview. It's a different philosophy than I was used to.
Wow, that is awesome. I love, like, our podcast is all about like woman empowerment, empower you to be like your best version. And like right off the bat, you're like, I got called to do, that's my second love. And I'm like, wow, like listen to that. Like, so as your brand, like I'm already connecting with you. And I'm so excited to ask you, Rebecca, is like, okay, what is acupuncture and what are its benefits? Because like when Jana told me about it, I started like doing some research, but I'm really, really excited to hear firsthand from you.
Yeah. So before I even tell you what I think it is, I want to say that there's the medicine, right? And then there's what the practitioner brings to the medicine, right? Which is a particular style, and we all are very unique. So let me tell you about the medicine itself. Traditional Chinese medicine, like Jatna says, dates back to, some people argue 10,000 years, some people 5,000 years, some people 2,000 years, right? But basically it's old, right? It's been practiced for a long time. And so the idea is that your body has channels or meridians that run mainly up and down your body. They're energetic lines, right? And we're able to actually trace them with modern tools, so that if I were to put a needle, a tiny, sterile, like very flexible needle into a point, you can see what other areas of the body it affects. But this is not what they had when the medicine, was created. And so basically, these are energetic channels that are paired with each organ that you have. So for example, there's a lung channel, right? And so the channel itself goes from the chest down to the arm and ends at the thumb, right? And so each organ has its channel. And that's how I decide what points I'm going to use in a treatment, because I feel 6 pulses. There are 3 on the left, 3 on the right. And based on what I feel and what the person tells me, I'm going to choose very specific points on those channels. So there are 14 primary channels that we have. And so that's more than just the organs, but basically each treatment is really unique to that person, because I'm feeling the pulses, I'm looking at the tongue. And the idea is that the philosophy behind Chinese medicine, in particular acupuncture, is that your body wants to heal. That's what it wants to do. Now, what we have to do to help it heal is create the right environment for it, create the right situation for it to heal. And that's what acupuncture does. So when you have it, it's an experience. You can relate to that, right, Chanda? It is like these points that, that they're chosen, and each point has a physical function, an energetic function, and emotional function. And that's the beauty also of acupuncture, is that through these channels and the use of these points, we access the mind. We access the physical, right, first, and then the mind, and then the spirit. So it's always working on those three levels. And that's, for me, what makes it so powerful.
I totally agree. When you were talking about like kind of like what it feels like, or I am a testament that I feel all of that. And one story, by the way, is that last time I went to acupuncture, which was maybe like 2 weeks ago or so, when I came in, like I mentioned earlier, I am further along in my pregnancy now. So like 25 plus weeks of, well, third trimester now. And when I came in, Rebecca said, oh, when when we're doing this now, you will feel baby move more, which I was a little bit skeptical about that, because I was just like, okay, I mean, I've done this many, many times already, but like, that's really like baby's gonna move more. Like in my mind, I was thinking like, okay, whatever. And then like she did her thing, and then she left, and then she came back with the moxa, which I'm sure you're gonna talk about at some point. But she was right. Like baby was moving so much, and I was so skeptical about that. And I was just like, whoa, like what is the connection between, like the needles, the moxa, like everything she was doing to like, baby girl, like feeling, I don't know, whatever she was doing in there. I was just like, wow, this is crazy. Like that whole connection and whatever is happening like externally and then like internally, and then that baby can feel it. That was, to me, like I was mind blown, just so everybody knows.
It is amazing because, your baby is connected to you. And so when I access a point via a channel, yeah, it's almost natural that she's going to feel it, right? But I understand. You're like, what the heck? Ow. And, on the other hand, I also, when mothers are very further along, like, almost at 39 weeks or 40 and baby's not coming. The other thing is, it's really fun, is to actually induce. So there are points that I stay away from, right, when I'm treating you, because you're not at that point. But some women are like, well, please help me, because I don't want to get all the stuff that, will happen if my baby doesn't come naturally. And so it's even fun to do that, because it's not even that the baby's going to come out on the table. It's not that way. They're very like specific points that I use to induce, but they're subtle. Right? It's just sending messages to the body. That's what acupuncture does, sends messages to the body. And we are very intentional about what those messages are. So when I'm inducing, it is like a down bearing, like we want this baby out, but it's not a forceful thing either. And so, yeah, these babies are like kicking and they're feeling it, because we are telling them it's time when it's induction. And so I just did that for a couple of people last week. And it's really fun because, like you said, it's astonishing that, yeah, this baby starts to move, dance, like get out of the way, you name it, because they're feeling those messages that we're sending to the body.
Which I love amazing. It. Honestly, I was mind blown. Like when I got out of there with that experience and feeling, that you said like, oh, you'll feel this. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like she was right. And then when you use the moxa to like help me with my back pain, that was like so horrible, like really bad. And you were like, oh, let me just, and then you did it on my back. And then like, I like instantly, I started to feel a lot better, and just like the pressure was gone. And I was just like, this is crazy. It's really crazy, but I felt really good though.
And moxa is one of my favorite treatment modalities. One of the things that I do with acupuncture. Do you want me to say a little about it?
No, we'll go.
Okay.
We'll go to that question.
Okay, sounds good.
It's just this is a good conversation. Like I had to tell people. But the next question though, Rebecca, and I know you said this already. You mentioned a little bit about like why you're passionate about acupuncture, and that you didn't really practice it before. Like you did social work first, but can you expand a little more? Like, what is it that you really feel like, why is it that you feel like it's your thing, like you have to do this for people, and why you moved from social work to do acupuncture instead?
So your question connects to my story. So I feel that we are led to things, right? And that I feel that the universe gives us signs, right? And so um, I traveled to Durban, South Africa, and I did some health research there a long time ago. I was still in undergrad at Michigan, and I was at a university, right? But one of these trips that we did outside of the metropolis of Durban, we went to a village, and I met these healers called sangomas, right? And sangomas, they're healers who paint their faces in different colors, and their don, their gift is to heal through herbs, dry animal parts, and ancestral wisdom. And of all the things many things stayed with me from that trip, but the main thing that stayed with me was the sangomas that I met. And so I think there are different steps along the way that led me to acupuncture. And why I'm so passionate about it is because I feel like I listened to those signs. So one of them was that, right? The meeting the sangomas. Then when I was doing social work in La Villita in Chicago, I took people to the emergency room all the time because they just were kind of not paying attention to their symptoms, right? And so I accompanied people to the hospital ER rooms, and I said, "This is why are people not going, even if they have insurance? Some had insurance, some did not." And so I made a hypothesis to myself and said, "Okay, what if they have a natural option? Would they go for it?" Would they go to a natural doctor and try it out? And then that way I could refer to a Western doctor. Well, I went to school, I came out, and let me tell you, I opened up a clinic in a local nonprofit org. I was busy. And this is a highly immigrant community in La Villita, right? And so what happened is that I was able to treat people. And then because they trusted me and because I had a network of people, then I would refer them because I was like, okay, acupuncture is great. And you need to go to this doctor. So that was another sign, just little signs along the way that let me know. And then finally is that if y'all the audience can't see me, but I tengo rasgos asiáticos, right? So I looked into that and I was like, what is that? Turns out that one of my great grandmothers was from Southern China. So I feel like even that ancestry part of me that I don't even know that well. One of my last names is Sung Sing. And a lot of people from Southern China moved to Nicaragua, as Chinese people have done, all over the world. And so I know that part of it is that spiritual ancestral calling too. So all those things, all those signs that I read along the way and all those callings made me I know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I was mentioning a little bit earlier when we were preparing that I don't feel this is work for me. When I'm there at the clinic, I feel like we have fun, Jana. We laugh, we talk, we cry, everything. And it's an experience that I feel like I walk with people. I don't feel like I'm helping people necessarily, but it's this agreement that happens between whoever comes, to Vida and myself. And I don't think it's an accident who comes either. Right. So that's really nice to be able to say that and to live that.
That's awesome. I love how you said it's not like I'm helping them. It's like I'm walking with them. And that's like every relationship that we have, every doctor, that's how we don't get that, right? We don't get that partnership. It's more of a one-way street. Here is a two-way street with you. And that's already making you unique to who you are, right? So I love that sets you who you are, Rebecca at Vida. So with that, I know I started hearing you and Jana talk about is it Mox or Moxa? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but this was like, I told you, I don't really know what to ask her, but I am interested to know what are the problems, or I'm not sure if you call this problems or what treatment do you give? What is it that you do the most, or what is it that you hear the most? That was my curiosity, because I feel like that's a question that someone that knows nothing about acupuncture that would help them understand a little bit more of what that is. So you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. It's varied. When people come and they seek support for fertility is a big one. Pain, it can be chronic pain or acute, like chronic would be long-standing. Back and neck are really common. And then acute would be if someone gets hurt and they just want to heal a little faster. I treat depression, anxiety. Some people really sometimes come in out of curiosity or maybe they come in for headaches, and then because the body's holistic, right? It's one system, then other things come to light that they need to work on. So even if somebody comes in for headaches, let's say, or migraines, right, which is common too, or allergies, there are underlying things. And that's one thing that I do want to let you know about this medicine is that in Chinese medicine, we look at the root. So think of a tree, right? And then the branch. And so the root, we would consider what's the underlying cause? What's the root reason? What's the real reason? And then the branch is what are the symptoms, right? And so we like to distinguish between those. And so we always go for both because we wouldn't just want to focus on the root if you have the symptoms and the discomfort, right? But we wouldn't just want to treat the symptoms because then we're not treating what's really underlying. Why are you having these pains? Why are you having these headaches? So we look at, okay, well, is it, a blood issue? Like, do we need to look at nourishing the blood? Do we need to look, is there too much energy rising up? So we need to ground you. And how we ground is with the earth element. So that would be spleen and stomach. And so those are the ways that we think about it. But yeah, the conditions are all of the above, I would say. Yeah, I let's see if there's any that I don't treat. I think it's I don't say I don't treat this. So it's whatever people need assistance with.
So like you normally find a way, depending on what the problem is, right? You try to figure out like a way to find the root cause and see if that's something that then you can treat from there instead of, like you said, like the symptom of whatever they came for. That makes sense. I mean, that makes total sense to me. And like, because when you go to the doctor, like the normal doctor, right? Like they just literally treat you for what you have. I don't know that, unless it keeps happening and you're just like, nope, I still, this is still continuing to happen. Like, unless you actually like express that or like voice, like your speak up and tell them like, we have to figure out what is happening, what's causing this. That's when then they start doing like all these other deep research, right? Like, and all these other tests to see like what's going on. But if you don't really do that, they're usually just treating you for whatever you came in. So, that's the problem with like modern medicine, I guess. Like with acupuncture, it's like you try to figure out like, okay, what's going on? What's the underlying problem? And then
Absolutely.
how, what's causing it. So I love that. I think that's amazing. And I think that's one of the reasons why, like when I was doing my research for like fertility, even though I was skeptical about it, it would, it was explaining that like we have to figure out like what the like the root cause of whatever is happening to you to be able to like help you. And I remember when you and I met, like you asked me like all these questions about my kind of like my like just like my medical history and like what is since whenever I first had my first kid, before that, and then after like what happened, and then now what we're doing. So like I love that you were able to kind of like find ways and like understand like, okay, first like what, let me kind of get to know her and her body and everything that she's gone through, to then figure out like, okay, let's start with this. And I remember you were like, oh, we're gonna start with this couple of things or whatever. And I mean, I don't want to say it was acupuncture, but I know it supported and it helped. But like 1 month into acupuncture, I got pregnant. I'm not gonna lie. And again, I'm not saying it was acupuncture, but I'm pretty sure that was, one of the reasons why it happened, to be honest. So I don't know. I think it works. It works.
That is so cool. If I was, if acupuncture was any part of it, I'm honored, because I think the body's so intelligent. Your body's so intelligent and it knows what it needs. And so this medicine just tries to work with it. That's really all it does. It tries to work with what's already going on. Right.
And I think it's like the whole thing about it is like, I feel like my body needed, for my particular reason, right, situation, I feel like when I went into you reset it, my body somehow, like, okay, we gotta like start and like, reset this and then go from there. And I think that's what helped, right, with the whole process as well. So I think that was, and then from there, it's history. Then we are here. So
I love that you said that now the resetting, because that's exactly what I tell folks. And even if I don't tell them, that's the intention and that's how the medicine works, right? Because for various reasons, whether it's lifestyle or work or worry or all of us have that, right? We do need to reset and let the body know, okay, I'm listening to you now. And it makes all the difference to do that. And just to take the time to go get a treatment says a lot about, what your intention is for yourself, just to take that time. Now, then the medicine itself does its thing too. And so I think all of those elements really make a difference.
So, Rebecca, with that, since we're talking about this and how like I went in and all of that, and I had told you that I was a little bit skeptical at first. I'm sure there's a lot of people that feel the same way, especially in the Latino community, because Latinos, even for like just regular therapy, period, going in and like actually talking to a therapist, it's another problem, right? Like where they're always saying like, oh no, if you go to a therapist, like you're crazy, or like all these other things. So what are the myths of acupuncture, and why do you think, again, Latinos do not like to pursue this type of treatment? Like what is it lacking in the community that it's not allowing them to do so?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think probably one of the biggest ones is that people are afraid of needles. Just the idea like, oh my God, I'm going to go and try to relax. And how am I going to try to relax if somebody's trying to put needles in me? Right. And so usually I even stay away from saying needles when I know it's someone's first time. I say, I'm going to put some points in you. Because I don't want them to like automatically be, But one thing I have to say is that because we're accustomed to the intradermal, what do they call the regular needles? I forgot what they're called, but they usually either take something out of you, right? They're hollow, right? So they're either taking blood out of the body, the usual ones, or they're putting some liquid in, and that's usually painful because it's invasive. It's like it's probably not a nice feeling, right? With acupuncture, the needles are as thin as our hair. They're really thin. They're flexible. And so I actually, because I have an interactive style with the way I practice, I put in a point and then I check in, put another point and I check in, right? But usually estoy haciendo plática, right? And I put in a point and then I say, how was, right? How was that? And they're like, how was what? Yes. How was what? And I'm like, oh, well, that was your first point, and they're like, no. I'm like, yeah, next, boop, another one. And they're like, oh yeah, it's good. And obviously, every point feels different. So some feel a little heavier than others. Some are so light you can't feel it. And I do tell people, if it hurts, tell me, because I don't like it to. Like maybe some practitioners are okay with that. I don't think it has to hurt because the medicine is powerful. It doesn't have to hurt in my book, right? And this goes back to like how I practice, and every practitioner is unique. And so if if for some reason it feels uncomfortable, it means it got caught in a hair follicle or just went in weird. So I just take it out and I redo it, and it's okay. Right. But I would say 95% of the time, most people are like, what? Really? Because it kind of goes contradictory to when we say needles. And it makes me wonder if maybe we should call them something else, because they're not the usual, like, it's not a needle that we think of when, you get a syringe, and it's not that at all. So that would be a main myth. I think another myth, and before I say what another myth is, I want to tell you that I feel lucky that I do have a lot of Latina and Latino patients now. And you know what's cool is that they're of different generations. So that calls my attention because I have older people, like in their 80s, that come for acupuncture. And I have middle-aged people, and I have young, like really young people that come in their 20s, right? And I ask myself the question, like, what is bringing them? Because I know that these myths exist. So I know one of the myths is religion. Some people feel like it might not go well with what their spiritual beliefs are. And just like yoga, too, they say it opens you up too much, they might think that about acupuncture. They might think that, is this gonna like invite spirits into me? I think that might be one of the things that maybe it's kind of not comfortable out of the box spirituality kind of thing. But I have to tell you that what it does for you, right? And so acupuncture goes as far as you want it to go. So if you just want a treat for neck pain, we got you. Now, the way I practice, I'm going to ask, okay, well, is this neck pain and shoulder pain? You think you're carrying too much stuff? You think you're carrying too much responsibility for other people? I'm going to ask those questions because that's just the way I practice, right? And so even if somebody just comes for neck pain, I'm going to ask a little bit more because, as I said, we look at root, not just branch. So I think that I meet the person where they're at. And that's really something that I got from social work. You meet the person where they're at. So if they're not about all the other stuff, they just want to focus on the physical, that's okay. That's okay. So, and it does what it needs to do for you. So I think that's the beauty of it too.
Awesome. Yeah, honestly, when we started out the episode, that when you mentioned like, oh, the mind, the spirit, and like, now I'm starting to see why I didn't hear that growing up, because it may say like, oh, I believe in God, I don't believe in any, in the Chinese, it's a myth that everyone believes in like this, that they idolize other people besides God, it's like, but it's not like, there's different things that people believe back in China. Like if you really go there, you'll see that there is all type of religions there. So I definitely see that. But yeah, I love how when you were saying, I was like, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, it connects with your mind, body, and spirit. Like it, and I love how you touched on it. It only goes up to where you want it to be, because it's like it's not like stuff that we see on TV, like, oh my gosh, I had a spirit come inside me. So thank you so much for clarifying that, and for being bold to bring that up, because I'm sure that many people go down that route. And then like the other question, you already kind of answered it. It's like you're saying a lot of people are afraid of needles, but is there anything specific that you have learned, like when you're having conversations with people that are afraid of trying acupuncture? What have you said to them? What have you learned to tell them to no longer be afraid of acupuncture?
That's a wonderful question. I'm not, that's a great question. I'm not so much about trying to convince people to do acupuncture. I think that just like Jatna, she was skeptic, and I love that people are skeptic. I really love that, because it means you're thinking about it, and you're questioning it, and that means you're a thinker and you're not just accepting, oh, acupuncture is good for me. I think that's great that people are skeptics, and I love it when skeptics come. I love it because, if you're already there, oh my goodness, that says so much. Just like with mental health You know, like if you're already looking for a therapist, that says so much, right? That you've gone beyond the thinking about it phase, right? To taking a step. And to me, that's huge. So I respect like so much when people are there. And even when they're there, they're still questioning it. And that's why I have so much respect. But the steps before that, I think that I just have to give information like now, like this conversation, and then they have to kind of decide for themselves. And sometimes it's about timing, you know. Sometimes people say, you know, I thought about it for so long, but I'm so glad I did it now. And I said, well, maybe this was the right time for you. I have to tell you that 2 days, 3 days ago, I treated someone who's visiting from a different state, and she had acupuncture 3 times, and she was convinced that it didn't work. But her friend insisted, "You got to go get a treatment. You got to go get a treatment while you're in Grand Rapids." So she came, and it was just so lovely to see. So she, rang my little bell a few times. She's like, is this normal? This is happening. I'm like, totally good. You're good. She's like, I feel a movement here, but there's no needle there. I'm like, yes, that's wonderful that you're feeling something there, some movement there, but there's no needle there. She's like, are you sure there's not a point there? I'm like, there is a point there, but there's no needle there. And so it was lovely just to answer her questions as she was experiencing it, right? And then at the end, I took all her points out. Remember, I call them points. And she just kept resting. And so I went and told her friend who brought her in. Her friend was the one who convinced her, not me, right? And I said, I know you guys have to go because you have this event. Do you want to go wake her up? And she said, I got to wake her up. We got to go. So she went and got her. And when she came out, it was so wonderful. She's 80. And she came out like, I don't know how to, kind of like doing a dance, putting her hands in the air. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but she was like, I feel like I'm like floating. And she was just doing this like sashy dance. And I was like, you feeling good? She's like, I haven't felt like this in years. You know, and this lady, had taken care of a loved one for 2 years, like 24 hours a day. And this person who was really close to her had passed. And so she had all this heaviness, right? And grief. And she obviously was questioning it because, she didn't have a good experience the first 3 times. And so that's also something I would say to someone that maybe even already tried it and they're like, I don't know. You just have to find the right fit. We're all so unique, and maybe the first time it doesn't work for you, but that doesn't mean the medicine doesn't work. It just means maybe you have to find the right practitioner who gets you, who gets your humor, or who gets, whatever your uniqueness brings, right? And that's why I'm happy that there are a lot of acupuncturists out there.
And I love that you're saying that, Rebecca, that like you have to, it may not have worked with the practitioner, at first that you went to, but you're still like encouraging people to continue to, find the person that understands them, or, like just like, I don't know, if they feel better with, which is very similar to therapy, honestly, because like you can go to a therapist and like you might be like, I don't know, like this person didn't, like this person and I did not connect, and like I don't know that they understand me or whatever. But it doesn't mean that therapy doesn't work. It's just that you and that person didn't really have that connection. It just didn't work. It doesn't work for the two of you. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't go back and try someone else until you find the person that you feel more comfortable with, and that, I don't know, like that you feel like understands you better. So it's like the same thing, right? So I love that. I really love the connection between, like, same with a doctor, right? Like you go to a doctor, they don't understand you, you don't feel good about how they treat you, then like, okay, I'm going to go find me another doctor. So, but doesn't mean that the treatment or whatever is happening, like it's not going to work. It's just that you have to find the right person for you and your needs. So I really love that. And then so we talked about Maxa. So, because I think that's something you always, and I think on your Instagram account, and I think you'll also have a little bit of information on that on your website as well. So what kind of treatments do you focus on the most in your office? It sounds like you use that a lot. So could you explain a little more about, so it's the points, right? The needles,
Mhm.
part of it. But then you also bring in this extra, I don't know, medicine, like whatever, herb or whatever you want to
Mhm.
call it. So like, what does that do? Like, what is that? And like, why did you incorporate it into like the process of like, or a treatment?
Yeah. So acupuncture is, the main one. And Moxa, which is a heat therapy, Moxa Bustion is the full name if someone wants to look it up. Moxibustion. And moxibustion comes from the leaves of the Artemisia plant. And the common name for Artemisia vulgaris is mugwort. Have you all heard of mugwort? It grows wildly in Michigan. I have it in my yard. And so those leaves, you can, they're dried up and then they're pulverized, right? And made into the cigar looking shape, that a stick that I call a moxa stick. And that moxa stick for me, and I don't use this word lightly, is magical. I can tell you all the properties of moxa, right? Or Artemisia. And one is that it's super warming. So I never place it on the skin, but just really close to some points. So on some points, what it does, it increases immunity. On other points, it strengthens your whole system. So basically, it's a very tonifying treatment and warming. So most of us need a little bit of that. Some of us need more, right? And so depending on what the person needs is how much I do. And that one, I do feel that it, just like acupuncture, it does put you in a lighter state. It almost creates a lightness within you. And so that is one that I use regularly. The other treatment modality is cupping, ventosas, usando las ventosas. So traditionally, we use glass cups with lighting fire, and creating a suction. I used to do that, but I noticed people kind of got scared of the fire. So now I use what we call suction cups. They're pneumatic. So there's a pump and that creates the suction. Those go on the skin and those are amazing too, because with cupping, we move the blood in the area. So that then makes the muscles relax, right? Because they're innervated now. The other thing that it does, it vents. So it's a kind of a detox. It creates a detox and it just relaxes the muscles. So I do cupping a lot too. There are times, when it's not recommended, but most of the time it's very safe to do cupping and moxa. I do ear seeds, right? And so they're little tiny seeds. Your ear is a microsystem. So the whole body is represented in the ear. And so at the end of the treatment, I will put little seeds. They're little sticky, like on a little Band-Aid of a tape. And the seed goes in particular points to kind of so that you can take the treatment home with you and it stays with you. So that's another one. And herbal medicine, Chinese, traditional Chinese medicine, a huge part of it is herbal medicine. And so depending on the condition, then we have herbs too. So yeah, it's a complete system. And I love to teach about these. I don't think that you should have to just come in and I do it for you. So if you want to learn to, learn how to use moxa and kind of get your immune system strong throughout the winter, I can teach you that. I love teaching that. I also now have an e-course, but if for learning how to do moxa and cupping, but if the person is interested, I just show them right on the spot because it's important for us to have what Rosibel said, to be empowered about our own health and to learn to listen to the cues our bodies give us. And that's a huge part of this medicine. So, teaching, and I have a teaching background and a social work background. So all those components come into the way I practice. So teaching is part of it, just kind of like learning how to hear your body and then learning actual strategies on how to treat it is important to me.
That's awesome. I'm like excited because to be honest, I'm over here trying to write down all the different things that you use. And when you said you have an e-course, I'm like, perfect. Like I don't have to Then we could go back, of course, listening to this episode, but that's an e-course. So with that said, it's like, okay, how are you have any like a website that we could go and visit you on and learn more about you? Take this e-course, like where's your office located here in Grand Rapids? Like, and most important, like what's the process to make an appointment with you? Because to be honest, like I'm already thinking of people I want to send over there, and I'm thinking like, should I do that myself? Because I'm right, personally, I'm doing like this detox, like this juicing detox, and I'm like, and you mentioned like, oh, like you mentioned like, oh, kind of like the cup suction kind of goes into a detox too. Because this year, John and I do vision boards, and that's one of the main things I'm doing is like really focusing on my health. So anyways, I get excited, guys. So Rebecca, you can tell us where can we find you, like where you're located, your website, everything to get more of that wisdom from you.
Absolutely. So my website is www.vida, dash acupuncture, ACUPUNCTURE.com. And there you'll find all the services that are available and the e-courses. They're pretty short and so accessible. Where it's located, where Vida is located, is 3167 Kalamazoo Avenue Southeast, and it's Suite 205, and that's Grand Rapids, Michigan, 49508. So it's just south of that Meyer on 28th Street, and it's in this church-looking building. It's a white little building at the end of 32nd. The building doesn't say that much, but once you're inside, it's so beautiful. All the foliage from the forest that's next door, and we see deer, all kinds of, wildlife through the treatment room. So it's a lovely place to be in. And how people make an appointment is you can go to the website, and there's a scheduling software there that you can see when my availability is and what times are available. And I actually like calls too. They're okay. If people have questions before they make an appointment, I'm happy to talk with them and explain to them the process. And I understand that some people prefer to, have a chat first. And I understand that. So yeah, either way is fine.
That's awesome. Love it. So I'm going to wrap it up here for all of us. I truly, like, you can probably tell my voice at the beginning. I'm like, oh, very low tone. I'm like super excited. Because like I said, I was excited to hear more from you, Rebecca. So I honestly love learning about acupuncture with you today. And I have a question for the listeners is, what is acupuncture for you? I want you to stop and like, okay, what is acupuncture for you? What I learned from Rebecca. But I do want to share like what was my takeaway. And it's my takeaway was like how the energetic channels are paired with organs. Like I never thought about them. Like that's really what sets what acupuncture as a difference. And I loved how you mentioned your body wants to heal. All of our body wants to heal. And that our body is smart. Like I was like, yes, our body is smart. And that's when it starts reacting to those messages. Of course, with that acupuncture, creating the right environment to heal and experience accessing the physical, mind, and spirit. And then I also loved how you went into, all the different type of treatments that you give. I'm going to call it the heat therapy for those of us that still not very familiar with the MOX. The moxa, the cupping suctions to relax the muscles, the herbal medicines, like the seed in the ear. I've seen Jana with that little thing on her ear. She's like, people that do acupuncture would know what that is. I'm like, okay. And then where I love the most is that as I'm writing all these down, I'm like, you go in there and tells me you have an e-course. So I love how you have an e-course. I love how we can find on your website. And then we could just, you could give us on the spot education at your office. So my call to action to everyone is, number one, stop and think about what is acupuncture for you. Stop and reflect before and after. I'm listening to Rebecca because she honestly spoke from her heart. This is something, as she said, it was a calling to her. It's not something like, oh, I want, she came out of college and that's what she did. Like there's a story behind who Rebecca is and who is Vida Acupuncture. And here at Dos Bo Latinas, we're all about stories. And I just love of how that, like, when you're gonna be with Rebecca, you're not just there to hear your body, but it's like just listening to her gives me that confidence that anyone that I send to Vida Acupuncture is gonna come out really feeling like that 80-year-old story that she said. And I'm not saying it just because she said that story, because it's honestly how I felt throughout listening to her. So I really want you to take the time to reflect upon that. And after reflecting, go to vitaacupuncture.com, look to her website, look at that e-course, book an appointment, like she said, like out of just curiosity, so she could keep answering your questions. Because like she said, it's like you want to make sure that this is the right fit for you. And I love how open she is about that. So thank you, Rebecca, for being the badass Latina that you are. I love how you said that you meet people where they are with acupuncture and then you walk them right through the process. I love how it's to be a two-way street. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. You'll be hearing some people saying that los iba a send you on over, not to my horn, pero
Wow.
yes, thank you so much for your time. And listeners, please go to vitaacupuncture.com. Like I'm honestly excited about this and so glad that we have you here in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Aw, thank you so much, Dos Bold Latinas. I love y'all. Thank you.
Love you too. Bueno, hasta la próxima. Ciao.